I saw this tweet from Rand Paul like a day or two ago, and I'm sorry, I'm playing a little bit of catch up here on the show, but I have to talk about this because it is so, I think, unintentionally stupid what Rand Paul is saying. I know we're supposed to expect that Rand Paul, he's a senator, he was a doctor, he must be a smart guy. Okay, well, you evaluate it because he read an article on the American Conservative and he decided to pluck out a paragraph from it that he felt proved a thesis of his, which is how to steal an election. And he said, quote, "Seeding an area heavy with potential Democratic votes with as many absentee ballots as possible, targeting and convincing potential voters to complete them in a legally valid way, and then harvesting and counting the results." That is his way to steal an election. And can we go back to that tweet? You see the sort of blank look Mark Zuckerberg is giving? That was sort of how I stared at that tweet. Wait, what is he? Is he trying to prove our point? No, he thinks he's proving some right-wing point about stealing the election, and I don't know what it's supposed to be. Like, maybe the one edge case is that he might be saying that they only do the absentee ballots in places that are especially Democratic, but that's not true. They're arguing against universal absentee ballots that would go everywhere, to Democrats, to Republicans. And then, dude, there would be persuasion. They would be filled out in a legally valid way and then counted. He says, he calls this process stealing an election, JR. I don't know, what do you think this process is?
No, this process is to exploit and continue to convince stupid supporters of his. I'm sorry, I usually don't call people just stupid. A lot of times it's ignorance, they miss the point. Maybe they're, maybe they're distracted by other things in life. They're working too much, whatever. So take back stupid. His gullible supporters that he knows will buy into all this. They worded this specific in a way to make people get scared and worried. We know this is the thing. Use certain terms that rile people out. That's why they continually use the same thing over and over and over again. Seeding an area. Oh my God, what, they're seeding? No, maybe they're campaigning. Maybe they're talking to people. Maybe they're going door to door. But instead, no, it's seeding. It's outside of the normal process of an election process, right? And then there's Democratic votes. Oh, we know those are all evil. They've already burned that into their supporters' heads. Then you're convincing potential voters. No, you're not campaigning. You're not selling yourself. You're convincing them. That's another dangerous word. And lastly, it's harvesting votes. Because we know once you're harvesting votes, they're not really counting them. They're harvesting them because they're doing something wrong. They're stealing them and they're harvesting for themselves. There's this whole thing about shucking or pulling off and snatch them out of the ground. You're harvesting votes. These are all negative terms within this whole thing. And he says it long enough that he knows his supporters will be like, yeah, I kind of skimmed what he said, but he said they're stealing elections, so they're stealing elections. That's all this is.
Yeah. I like, it's the normal way that this would work is that you wouldn't like. So I went to the article and I looked it over. And if you think that there's something there, you too can go and read the article. So normally they assume that you're not going to do that. They'll retweet Rand Paul because they assume the article proves what he's saying. Yep. He decided to activate challenge mode, which is to not just do a sort of like pithy, quick headline, but to actually explain what the article describes, but still pretend that it proves the point you're saying. So unfortunately, the joke is very much on us because lots of, like, he was owned in the comments, definitely, but lots of Republicans still spread it because they agree. They think that what he described, which is democracy, is a bad thing. And that is because Republicans don't like democracy. Like, they would be perfectly willing to live in a democracy so long as it delivers never-ending conservative white male governance. As soon as it stops doing that, then they're good with it. They don't care about that anymore. They want to move on to some other system that will continue to give them power. And you cannot have a functioning democracy so long as some will support it only if it puts them in charge. That can't be the way it is. It's supposed to be whoever the people support are in charge, and then the other side, in the years where they're out of power, will like come up with new ideas or change their positions on things, try to become more appealing. But that's not what they're trying to do. There's no new platform. Hell, there wasn't a platform the last time. Totally. It's just, how do we stop the process that they just identified? How do we stop the absentee ballots from going out? How do we stop the convincing of voters? How do we stop the harvesting and counting of results? How do we put people in charge that will just overturn the results if you count them and they don't go the way they want? That is what is actually going on. And I understand that a lot of people are probably bored with this at this point. We've talked so much about the anti-democratic swing of the right this year, but it's still there, and we're about to see an awesome test of it in these midterms. They are going to have more control over elections than they did. They've got a new round of gerrymandering that just happened. It's not as big of a test or as consequential a test as 2024 will be, but it's still pretty bad, and it's coming up soon.
Yeah, well, last my thought is getting ratioed or proven wrong on a Twitter post like this for conservatives, specifically Ted Cruz does this all the time. Getting owned and shown how wrong you are and ignorant, and not even ignorant, they know. But doing that is part of the plan. You're like, see, Twitter totally told me I'm an idiot and they proved me wrong. You're gonna believe those guys who said things with facts? You're gonna listen to me. See, that's what the liberal media does. That's what social media does. They tell me I'm wrong when I'm wrong. They're not speaking to the people who are telling them how wrong they are and who have proven how wrong they are. They're speaking to the people who just want something to glom onto to continue to galvanize their anti-attitude. It's anti. Oh, look, see, I told you all those hateful people are gonna say I'm stupid when I say something stupid.
Yeah, they can say stupid things because it works on both sides. Their base doesn't have the cognitive apparatus to actually look at what they said. See, wait, is that consistent? Is that clever? They don't evaluate it on that level. So you can be stupid and be just fine. Take a look at Charlie Kirk's tweets. They do perfectly fine. He's never had a thought in his life. And then on the other side, if they're criticized, then that activates the partisan lens that they view all politics through. And I'll give you another example really fast. There was this tweet from Marjorie Greene who said, in response to, there was a tweet from Pedro Gonzalez who says, I support actively discriminating against transplants like this through legislation, people who move from one state to another. He says they shouldn't be able to vote for a period and they should have to pay a tax for their sins. So if you move to a red state, you shouldn't be able to vote and you should have to pay money for it. So apparently they found a tax that they like, and they are consistent in that they don't want people to vote. She says all possible in a national divorce scenario, which is what she calls a civil war that splits the country. She doesn't want to say that because it sounds really bad. So she says a national divorce. After Democrat voters and big donors ruin a state like California, you would think it wise to stop them from doing it to another great state like Florida. Brainwashed people that move from California and New York really need a cooling off period, which is, again, you just can't vote when you get there. Why? Because you came from a state. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is because they think that all voting is contingent, and they think that the only thing that matters is who you will vote for. And if you won't vote for them, they will find some excuse to take away your vote.
I'm just trying to figure out when these liberals are gonna stop trying to ostracize half the country based off of their partisan nature and their political views. It's abhorrent, and I'm trying to figure out when these progressives are gonna stop excluding Americans.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I love the idea that if you're a Republican in California and you move to Florida, no, you made the stupid mistake of coming from California. You shouldn't be allowed to vote. But they're not going to be bothered by that because they understand that all of this democracy is just a potential means to an end. And if it's not good enough, they'll replace it with something else. For us, it is an end in itself. We believe the system should be responsive to people. They just want to be in charge, and they need a good storyline to cloak how they did it, how they got into power.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.